Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. Happy Easter to those who celebrate. We don't do much in the way of Easter. I tend to buy the kids some winter pajamas because it just happens to be the right time to get them new pajamas, and every year they get bigger and therefore need more winter pajamas. So they will get some new winter pajamas probably tonight after they've had a shower so they can wear them to bed, get up in them tomorrow morning. Other than that, I've made a few different types of chocolate chip not cross buns because I am too lazy to put crosses on them and I don't like sultanas or raisins, so we have choc chips instead. So I've got a couple of those to share. I did some, I can't even remember, pulled pork I think is in the last couple of days, as well as a strata made with some sourdough brioche loaf that I made and various other bits and pieces. So another couple of days of kitchen food prep. I've got a little over, I think it's the plan to go grocery shopping is the 25th-ish. So the 25th is a public holiday and my mum's birthday is on the 26th. So I will probably go down so that I can have dinner with her for her birthday and do groceries then. So we're looking at a week and a bit before I do groceries again. So we're getting towards the end of all the stuff that we've got and making it stretch. Makes the meals a little more boring, a little less veggie filled, other than frozen veggies and things like that. A little bit more creativity required for each meal. We tend to eat less towards the end of the month because there's less choice and less easy to eat foods. So I don't know, pros and cons to that. I will start planning my next month's food shopping. If you would like me to do a bit more information about how I plan for the food shopping, as much as I do planning, as in I inventory what I have left, but I don't plan my groceries in detail because I like to be able to shop from the specials and figure out what is actually cheaper at the time, and then I figure out what I'm going to do with it once I get it home, rather than buying something that might be higher priced because I already have a plan for it. So I don't plan out my meals for the month as such. We just know exactly what we like to eat, and I know approximately how much I need for that month. Like I know that if I'm buying chicken breasts, how many containers of chicken breasts I would need to buy to get me through the month if I don't have whole chickens. But if I have whole chickens, I need less chicken breasts, that sort of thing. So it's a little bit of just knowledge of our eating habits that helps with that and that sort of thing. But I do plan to a degree, so if you want me to share some of that with you, I am happy to do that. Otherwise, I will see you again in another couple of days. I still have pastrami to make. I'm not sure what else we need to get done from what is there, but food over the next week will be a little bit more repetitive, but we'll get there. So I will see you again next time, and thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, hit the thumbs up, all that sort of stuff. It helps the channel to be seen by more people, and that would be great. I also have been asked lately about being able to send stuff. My postal address is in the description of every video if you need it, and I do have an Amazon wish list, but I'm not very good at maintaining it because I tend to keep paper lists more than digital ones. But I did sign up, someone suggested I signed up to something called Buy Me a Coffee, so I'll put the link in the comments below, and it's one where you can basically just buy me a coffee, so you can donate whatever you wish to donate through that, so that gives you an option there as well. And I am grateful for anything and everything that anyone gives, but it is of course not expected or necessary. Alrighty, I'll see you next time, and have a great Easter. Being Easter, I made a few different baked treats that I don't always make. Some worked, some didn't. One of the first things I tried making was a brioche loaf, a sourdough brioche loaf. Now, the weather is a bit unpredictable at the moment. It's quite cool overnight, and I didn't bring the dough inside to proof overnight. So I proofed this overnight, and then I pulled it out in the morning and I divided it and shaped it to place it in the loaf tins, and then I left it to rise for many hours during the day as well. So we'll see further on how it turned out. It was quite dense, but I found use for it anyway. I made up a quick mustard, and I didn't have any mustard in the fridge made up. Normally I ferment my mustard seeds in some apple cider vinegar over a span of time and blend it and make my mustards, but I haven't done it in a while, so I just made a really quick mustard using seeds and some vinegar and some spices and a bit of sweetener and things like that, because I was going to do some pulled pork. So the first thing I did was take all the rind off the pork. I cut it into 3 different pieces and so that it was easier to handle, and took all the rind off the pork. I then coated the whole pieces of pork in the mustard, so just slathered it all over the pork. This keeps moisture inside and helps with creating that bark on the outside of the pork as it smokes, and it adds flavour. We really like the flavour of the mustard with the meat as well. And then over the mustard we put a thick coating of the dry rub. So the dry rub is my standard sort of a one. It's salt and pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, smoked paprika, bit of brown sugar, whatever else, mustard powder. Sometimes I probably didn't put mustard powder in this one because we had the mustard rub. A range of bits and pieces of those style of flavors that I use and mix up and use them as the coating for the pork. And I put it on really generously. I put it on a board so that I can pat it into it as it falls off. I can keep on patting it in, and I made all 3 one after the other, so I made sure to use up as much of that rub over each piece of pork as I possibly could. And then I put them all in the smoker together, the largest one on the lower shelf because they didn't all fit on the same shelf, with the probe in the lowest one so that I could monitor the temperatures of the internal temperature of the meat as it smokes. And then left them. I think it took around about 6 hours to get them to temperature. It probably should have taken a bit longer at a bit lower temperature, but I was a bit impatient. What we tend to do with the rind that we take off the pork, and if you've been around for any length of time you would have seen me do it before, is that we slice the rind up and we cook it over potatoes. I didn't have enough potatoes to fill 2 trays this time, so I did it over a tray of potato and a tray of pumpkin, and then we that renders all the lard out of the rind as well. They eat rind and the vegetables as snacks, and then we pour off the lard into jars for using for cooking later. So the brioche had risen as much as I was willing to wait because it was late afternoon, and so I stuck it in the oven and cooked it. And then when it came out, it wasn't bad, just wasn't quite as fluffy as I would like. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of these heavily enriched doughs, to be honest. I think I prefer maybe a challah, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, style lightly enriched dough. When the pork hit temperature, I brought it out and wrapped it in foil to sit for half an hour just to rest before I was going to pull it. So I just put that in the baking tray and put it aside and transferred the probe to one of the other pieces to make sure that they got up to temperature as well. After it had cooled to handling temperature, I unwrapped the pork in the tray and then started pulling. So I just used 2 forks and pulled it apart. This one possibly could have gone a little bit longer, but it still pulled apart nicely. It was nice and soft and tender, very tasty and perfectly fine for our usage. I did do a method this time where I didn't put them in a tray once they hit stall. I just left them as they were from stall to done temperature, and maybe I think next time I'll put them in a tray just so that the bottom of them doesn't end up quite as charred. The next day I had made pizza dough the night before and put it out to prove overnight. So the next day I had to empty it out onto the baking tray, and I divide it into 8 balls at around about the 250-260 gram mark, and then shape it into balls and place it in the baking trays with a bit of semolina on it, and then the baking trays go into the fridge for dinner that night. So I just pull them out about half an hour before I'm ready to cook them of the evening so that I can use them to cook. So these will go in the fridge and stay there until tonight when I'm ready to make dinner. For lunch that day I did some sourdough flatbread, and then I divided as I normally do. I weigh it and divide it into mini 55 gram balls, and I roll it all out nice and flat, and I cook it off in the cast iron pan. And then we had it with some of the pulled pork and some pickled coleslaw and mayo for lunch. This is one batch of the hot cross buns that I made. These ones were a sourdough one. They were choc chip, not fruit, because I'm not a huge fan of fruit in my hot cross buns. It was one of quite a few versions. This one was a very heavily enriched version, and as I just said, I think I'm more inclined to go a lightly enriched bread. I'm not as huge a fan of heavily enriched, so they had a lot of eggs and butter and stuff in them, or versions of that we could use. They were easy enough to handle. The dough was pleasant. It rose fairly well. There was nothing wrong with them. They're quite heavy, cakey sort of a hot cross bun, and I prefer the bready ones. So I split them all into balls, and then I shaped them all into nice tight balls to be putting in the tray. And I just thought I'd give you a demonstration of how I shape my rolls as well. So there's some single hand shaping here, and there's some double hand shaping as well, just to show you the hand position while you try and get those rounds into nice, neat, tight little balls. That evening we started out with the pizzas. So I just put them out into rectangles because it's easier to slice when you've got 6 kids, when you have them in rectangles, and it's just more convenient to get more cooked at the same time. We use home canned pizza sauce, and I have caramelized onion jam quite often that I put on the bases as well. The kids like pineapple on the pizza. I think they're strange, but they like it, so that's fine. And we had some of the pulled pork, some bacon, corn, the pineapple. We have whatever we have around on them. They also had cashew cheese on this batch because I had some made up and in the fridge, so I just dolloped that in the 6 spots where I knew it would be sliced, because that way each child got some on their slice of pizza, and they could put some more on afterwards if they wanted to. We got the hot cross buns out of the oven, so they looked perfectly good. They were perfectly edible. Everyone ate them. They just weren't my preference of them. And then the pizzas came out of the oven as well, so the kids got pizza for dinner and a hot cross bun for dessert today. Lucky them. Next day, and I made some chicken stock. I made this for the dog's benefit, not for stock for us. I didn't really need much in the way of stock. So this one has sweet potato and zucchini and all those sorts of things that would normally make the stock really murky coloured, but I didn't mind because I wasn't canning the stock. So this was for dog food, so I pressure cooked that for 90 minutes, and then we pureed it up in the Thermomix like I've done every other time on here. I did another batch of hot cross buns. These ones I did the less enriched version, so they only have, I don't think they have any eggs in them, and they just have a little bit of ghee to help with the enriching them slightly, but they were much more like a sweet bread rather than a cake. I do prefer this style. I think I very much prefer that bready, pull apart sort of chewy style texture rather than the cakey style texture, so I'll remember that for next year now. That was the last batch that I made. I used Easter as an excuse to make lots of them, but now that Easter's over, though it is Anzac Day next week, so I will probably be making Anzac cookies quite a few times this week. I actually glazed these ones, but I forgot to record it, and I used some of my green tomato jam from last season to warm up and use as the glaze on the top of them, which was really nice as well. So that was everything for the last few days. I hope you enjoyed watching and gained some inspiration and just enjoyed in general, and I will see you again in another couple of days. Groceries in a week, so we're getting to the end of everything now, but we still have to feed everyone. Apparently it's my job to feed everyone, so there will still be more food to be made. Thank you for watching.